You are standing around a fire. It is 10,000 years before agriculture, 40,000 years before Wi-Fi, and roughly forever before someone invents the phrase, just one quick cigarette break. The sun has gone down. The air is cold. Your group is sitting close to the flames. There is no phone, no coffee, no podcast, no therapist asking how your childhood affected your productivity. Just fire, darkness, and smoke drifting directly into your face. And at some point in human history, one of our ancestors probably had a strange thought, wait, why do I feel different? That tiny moment may be the beginning of one of the oldest and most complicated human habits ever, smoking. Not modern cigarettes, not cigars, not that one guy outside the office who somehow turns a 5-minute break into a full documentary about his divorce. We are talking about the first time humans intentionally inhaled smoke from burning plants. And the wild part is this: smoking did not begin with tobacco. It did not begin in Europe. It did not even begin with civilization. It may go all the way back to the discovery of fire itself. So let's start there. Before humans could smoke anything, they needed fire. And fire is ancient, extremely ancient. Archaeological evidence from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa shows that early human ancestors were using fire around 1 million years ago. Some newer research even suggests possible fire use between about 1.07 and 79 million years ago, though scientists are still debating exactly how controlled it was. Either way, that is long before Homo sapiens became the main character. At that time, our ancestors were probably Homo erectus, or other early humans. Smaller brains, heavier brows, 0 smartphones, and honestly, probably better sleep schedules. Fire changed everything. It gave warmth. It scared away predators. It made food easier to digest. It extended the day after sunset. And maybe most importantly, it pulled humans together. For hundreds of thousands of years, people sat around fires every night. And if you sit around fire every night, you breathe smoke. Not sometimes. Constantly. That means smoke was part of human life long before anyone decided to do it on purpose. But here is where the story gets interesting. Wood smoke is not just smoke. When plants burn, they release chemical compounds. Different plants release different compounds. Some are irritating. Some are toxic, and some can affect the human nervous system. In other words, long before anyone had a pipe, a ritual tent, or a terrible health campaign from the 1950s, humans may have accidentally inhaled psychoactive smoke. Imagine a prehistoric group sitting near a fire where certain plants are burning, maybe cannabis, maybe wild tobacco, maybe other local herbs with powerful effects. Someone breathes it in, and suddenly the night feels warmer, stranger, more meaningful. They do not understand chemistry. They do not know what receptors are. They are not saying, interesting, this plant seems to interact with my endocannabinoid system. They are saying, why is the moon breathing? And if that happened once, humans would notice. If it happened twice, humans would remember. And if it happened enough times, somebody would try to recreate it. That is the basic logic of early human discovery. Accident, curiosity, repetition. This is how we learned what was edible, what was poisonous, what healed wounds, and what made your cousin Grok stare at a rock for 3 hours. Now, we have to be careful. We do not have video evidence of a caveman taking the first puff. Archaeology is powerful, but it has limits. Stone tools survive for millions of years. Burned seeds sometimes survive. But dried leaves, wooden pipes, leather bags, and plant fibers usually disappear. So the earliest direct evidence is much younger than the behavior may actually be. One of the strongest examples comes from the Pamir Mountains of Central Asia. At the Jirzunkel Cemetery, dating to around 500 BC, researchers found wooden braziers with burned stones and chemical traces of cannabis. Not just any cannabis with unusually high levels of psychoactive compounds. That means people were not just burning random weeds. They were intentionally creating cannabis smoke during ritual ceremonies about 2,500 years ago. And this matches ancient written history. Around the 5th century BC, the Greek historian Herodotus described the Scythians, a nomadic people from the Eurasian steppe, using hemp in what looked like a smoke-filled steam bath. They heated stones, threw hemp seeds on them, sat inside tents, inhaled the vapor, and according to Herodotus, enjoyed it very enthusiastically. For centuries, some scholars thought he was exaggerating. Then archaeology basically walked in and said, actually, Herodotus was taking notes. But cannabis is only one branch of the story. The plant most people associate with smoking is tobacco, and tobacco comes from the Americas. That detail matters. Before 1492, tobacco was unknown in Europe, Africa, and Asia. When Columbus and other Europeans arrived in the Caribbean, they saw indigenous people inhaling smoke from rolled leaves. The Europeans were confused, coughed dramatically, and then, because humans are humans, started doing it too. But tobacco use in the Americas was already incredibly old. At the Wishbone site in Utah, researchers found burned seeds of wild tobacco in a hearth, dating to about 12,300 years ago. That is roughly 9,000 years earlier than the previous oldest evidence of tobacco use in pipes. Think about that. 12,000 years ago, before cities, before writing, before the pyramids, before Stonehenge, before almost everything we call history, hunter-gatherers in North America were already using tobacco. But for many indigenous cultures, tobacco was not casual. It was sacred. It was used in healing rituals, diplomacy, prayer, and communication with the spirit world. Smoke was not just smoke. It was a messenger. It carried words upward, prayers outward, and meaning between people. That is very different from modern smoking. In ritual contexts, tobacco was often controlled, symbolic, and limited. In the modern world, especially after industrial cigarettes, smoking became mass-produced, commercialized, and addictive by design. And the consequences are brutal. Today, the World Health Organization estimates that tobacco kills more than 7 million people every year, plus around 1.6 million non-smokers exposed to secondhand smoke. About 1.3 billion people worldwide still use tobacco. So yes, humans have a very old relationship with smoke. But the modern cigarette is not some ancient spiritual tradition. It is an industrial product. Same plant family, completely different machine. That transformation really accelerates after the 1500s. By the 1600s, tobacco is spreading through Europe. By the 1700s, snuff is fashionable among elites. By the 1800s, cigars are common. And by the early 1900s, manufactured cigarettes turned tobacco into a global habit on a scale no ancient shaman could have imagined. Ancient smoke was ritual. Modern smoke became business. But why were humans drawn to smoke in the first place? One answer may be medicine. Ancient Egyptian medical texts, including the Ebers Papyrus from around 1550 BC, describe herbal treatments. Across the ancient world, people used smoke, vapor, and aromatic plants for healing. Ancient Greek medicine used fumigation. Ayurvedic traditions in India described dumpana, sometimes translated as smoke drinking, involving medicinal herbs inhaled through tubes or pipes. From a modern perspective, treating lung problems with smoke sounds like fixing a leaking roof by pouring more rain on it. But the underlying idea was not stupid. The lungs are an efficient delivery system. We still use inhaled medicine today, asthma inhalers, anesthetic gases, nebulizers. The smart part survived. The let's burn it first part, less so. Another answer is social bonding. Humans are group animals. For most of our evolution, being alone was a death sentence. Groups survived because they trusted each other, moved together, hunted together, mourned together, and shared rituals. Modern research on rituals shows that synchronized group behavior can increase cohesion and affiliation. Shared experiences, especially intense ones, make people feel connected. So, when ancient people inhaled smoke together, whether cannabis, tobacco, herbs, or incense, it was not just about the substance. It was about the group. A smoke ritual could mark a funeral, a treaty, a healing ceremony, a transition into adulthood, a conversation with ancestors, a way to make invisible ideas visible. Smoke rises. Smoke disappears. Smoke changes the air. For ancient humans, that made it powerful. So when did humans start smoking? The honest answer is, we do not know exactly. The hard evidence takes tobacco use back about 12,300 years. Cannabis smoking is directly documented around 500 BC. Fire use goes back at least around 1 million years, and maybe even earlier. But the behavior, the curiosity, the experimentation, the desire to alter consciousness or create ritual may be far older than the artifacts we have found. Maybe the first smoker was not a priest, a healer, or a king. Maybe it was just someone sitting too close to the wrong plant at the right fire. And that is what makes this story so human. Our ancestors did not have laboratories. They had memory, they had observation, they had trial and error. Sometimes the error was fatal, which is definitely one way to make a lesson memorable. But through that process, humans learned that plants could feed us, heal us, poison us, calm us, excite us, and sometimes open doors in the mind. Smoking began somewhere in that deep, smoky space between survival, medicine, ritual, and curiosity. Long before cities, long before empires, long before anyone invented the cigarette break, humans were already gathering around fire, breathing in the night, and wondering why the world suddenly felt different. So next time you smell smoke from a campfire, remember this: you are catching a trace of one of humanity's oldest relationships. Fire, breath, plants, mystery, and a very ancient human asking the most dangerous scientific question of all: what happens if I try that again? Stay connected, because Cairo brings you simple historical facts every week without the boring textbook energy.